flip into Matthew 8, um, the guy that did this, he left the notes from Matthew 6 on this part, but forget about that. So, see, I have notes up here on mine. You just have that slide. So, anyways, I was working really hard today to try to get ready for tonight. Matthew chapter 8, we're going to read verses 1 through 4. If you would like to read, please go.
When he had come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. And behold, a leper came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean.
Then Jesus put out his hand and touched him, saying, I am willing, be cleansed. Immediately his leprosy was cleansed.
And Jesus said to him, See that you tell no one, but go your way, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded as a testimony to them.
Thank you all. Okay, number 1, verse 1. When he had come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. Okay? When he, Jesus, had come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. So the past 3 chapters, Matthew 5, 6, and 7, are referred to as the Sermon on the Mount. Okay? Jesus had been preaching an extended sermon on the mountainside to a great multitude of people. Matthew 5:1 says, And seeing the multitudes, he went up on a mountain. When he was seated, his disciples came to him. Then he opened his mouth and taught them. Verse 3 of chapter 5 through verse 29 of chapter 7 that we just finished last week made up his Sermon on the Mount. At the end of chapter 7, he heads down the mountain, and that's where we pick up here at chapter 8. When he had come down, great multitudes followed him. So I guess that there were more than just a great multitude, because it said great multitudes came to him when he went up the mountain. And here we see great multitudes are following him when he came down from the mountain. Now, why do you suppose these great multitudes followed Jesus?
He had been the one that was preaching in the first place. And
Okay.
they were now becoming aware that they could find something from him.
From him, okay?
Well, he fed them with this
Yeah.
miracle loaves and fish.
Yeah.
That got their attention, I'm sure.
Not yet, though.
He spoke
I don't
in a
think
way
he's fed them yet. This is
spoke-
really early.
He spoke in a way that they said would show authority.
Okay? So that kind of hit on the nail head of what I'm getting at here. Do you remember what the soldiers say later, who had been sent by the authorities to get Jesus and to bring him back to them, but they came back empty-handed? Do you remember what they said? What their excuse was?
We've never heard anyone speak like this.
No man ever spoke like this man or spake. Look at what it says in John. I'm thinking that my son plays with that sometimes, and now the battery's not working. John 7:45. Then the officers, this is when they came back empty-handed. The officers came to the chief priests and Pharisees, who said to them, Why have you not brought him? The officers answered, No man ever spoke like this man. So, do you think that these great multitudes followed Jesus to some extent because of what he had already taught them? I would think so.
He had
At
he
least to
already,
some extent.
some had already accepted his teaching.
Yep.
I think I'd be mildly curious and want to hear more.
Yeah, if you liked what he said the first time, then preach on, preacher.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that they did. Listen to the last verse, the last two verses in Matthew 7, verses 28 and 29. This is what it said. You'll probably remember from your quiz last week. And so it was when Jesus ended these sayings, that's finished his sermon, that the people were astonished at his teachings, for he taught them as one having authority, not as the scribes. So, many of the people in this great multitude were astonished at his teachings because he taught as one having authority. So, of course, we know that Jesus has been given all power and authority in heaven and on earth by God, who is the ultimate authority over everything. Okay? And the Bible teaches us that he is the one that is excluded from that, being the one that gave the authority. So, God Almighty over everything. Jesus just below him and over everything else. Okay? We know that. So, here's something interesting to think about. I don't know about you, but this is the main reason that I follow Jesus and listen to him speak. Because I firmly believe that he has all authority. One of these days, I will be judged for what I have done based off of what he has said. Therefore, I believe him and I follow him. Because I want to hear that well done, good and faithful servant. Not depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Okay? So, that's the way I feel about it. What about you?
I consider him kind of a leader of the pack, you know. He's a leader.
Well, you're right. Yeah. He's the head of the body, right?
Mhm.
He's the head of the church. Any questions or comments over verse 1? Okay, I'm doing too good of a job, or you're not awake, or something.
You're doing a good job.
So, thanks, babe. If I had a gold star, I'd give one to you. All right, verse 2. And behold, a leper came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. And behold, a leper came and worshipped him, saying, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Does anything just jump out at you when you first saw or hear that verse?
Well, a leper being among the public for one thing.
Okay, Michael is on tonight. According to their custom, a leper should not have come near Jesus or anybody else that wasn't a leper. He should have stayed at a distance from everyone. Traditionally, they cried out, unclean, unclean, if anybody came around them. That's what they were supposed to do. But this guy didn't. Why not? What caused this man to come to Jesus? I don't know what the penalty was, if there even was one.
He believed he could make him clean, just like he had.
Okay,
He had
okay.
seen it, he had heard it, he wanted to get in on it.
Everybody agree? Anybody
Yes.
disagree?
I didn't
Yeah.
understand myself.
When it says, Lord, if you're willing, so he knew God could. So he said, this is the man I need to ask.
So it was his faith in Jesus that he could make him clean that caused him to approach him. Look at what he said. Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. See, he believed that Jesus could heal him, and he was right. Jesus could. As we just stated, Jesus has all power and authority in heaven and on earth. Okay? We know from creation, John tells us that he was in the beginning with God, and all things were made through him. Without him, nothing was made that was made. So it should surprise us that he can pretty much do anything that is within God's will for him to do, because he made it all from nothing in the first place. So he made the man, he made Adam, he made Eve, and
It was too small.
everybody after that has been made in that pattern. Therefore, if he made it from nothing, he can make it new again without little or no effort at all.
That's why I'm always bringing up dumb points,
They're not all dumb.
but
That doesn't sound good.
just to,
They're not
let's say scientifically speaking, but even biblically, that there's not an atom that God created that has been changed. You can't create matter or destroy
an
matter.
atom. Okay, yeah, right.
So, I mean, that's just,
Yeah, right.
should be taught in school, but it's not, but,
Well, we'll teach it here.
okay.
You're right, from what I know.
Need a job?
Um, so, I mean, it's no surprise to us, right? I mean, because if you believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, then you understand that he has this power and authority to be able to do this because he made it all from the beginning. Okay? Sometimes, like when we're working on some of these cars that we work on, and we have an issue where I have to take something back apart, which happened right when the customer picked up this Corvette that we've worked on for 6 months. We had 512 hours labor in this car. And when they picked it up, they decided that they didn't want the seatbelts in it after all. So literally it took like an hour and a half or so. We had to jack the car up, which is, I mean, like painted everywhere and polished. Carefully jacked it up while they're watching. Take it apart, take the seatbelts out, put the seats back in, all of this stuff. But the whole thing about it is like I wasn't sweating it necessarily because I made all this stuff. So like I made it to go in and out. We've had it in and out a bunch of times. I just wanted to be really careful not mess it up so I didn't have to do any more work to it.
Oops.
But it's that same kind of thing, that Jesus far above what I'm talking about and everything. This guy believed that. He believed that Jesus could heal him, and he was right. Jesus could. Now, Jesus, you got to understand, this is very early in his ministry. He has not been out preaching and teaching for very long at all. We only know about 2 instances so far. One was the Sermon on the Mount that he just come off of, and now he's getting ready to start teaching again. But prior to that, he had another little episode of teaching that he did. He hasn't done most of his miracles yet either. Okay? So he has done some. And if we back up to the end of Matthew 4, we will see that his miracles caused the great multitudes to follow him in the first place. Okay? So great multitudes follow him up the mountain, listen to him. He comes down the mountain, great multitudes come down and start following him again. And here we have this leper who comes to him to be healed. So look at Matthew 4, verse 23 through 25. And Jesus went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all kinds of sickness and all kinds of disease among the people. Then his fame went throughout all Syria, and they brought to him all sick people who were afflicted with various diseases and tormented, and those who were demon-possessed, epileptics, and paralytics, and he healed them. Great multitudes followed him from Galilee, from Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and beyond the Jordan. That was at the end of chapter 4. So then we go up on the mountain. Multitudes go there. He teaches for chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7, comes down the mountain. Multitudes are following him. We've got this leper. So he went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all kinds of sickness and all kinds of diseases among the people. And his fame went everywhere. Now, the Bible does not tell us if this leper had heard Jesus teach or not, but it does tell us that he did have faith that Jesus could heal him. And it could have very well come from either someone who had seen him healing people in Matthew 4, or he saw him doing it in Matthew 4, or somebody heard about it. Somehow this leper found out that Jesus could do this, and so he came to him.
And you also already had John the Baptist before this too, right? Who was going
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
and
that was, like, that
so,
was another avenue to kind of spread
yeah,
knowledge
Right.
and awareness, I guess.
that was the whole point of John coming, was to prepare the way for Jesus. Okay? Was to get people ready. And that's why as soon as John went into prison, Jesus starts his ministry. Okay? John said, I must decrease and he must increase.
That's right.
I don't know if he knew to what extent, but that was true. Okay? He had to step down. Jesus stepped in and started his ministry. Of course, there were still disciples of John. But how many miracles do we know that John did? John the Baptist. There's no record of any miracle being done by John. So here's Jesus, who has that same plus authority that John came preaching, because John got the word from the Father, but he didn't have what Jesus had. So here's Jesus, and he's like doubled down on what John was teaching. He's going even deeper and further with what he's teaching. And he's also doing miracles to prove that he is the Son of God. Now, so the Bible doesn't tell us how this man heard about it or saw it, how he knew that Jesus could do this, could heal him. But it brings up a good point, because somehow, some way, he had to find out.
Has Jesus healed any lepers yet, or is that later on down the
Well, he probably healed some at that first, because it said all sorts of sicknesses and diseases and demons. I mean, it lists pretty much everything except raising from the dead. At that point. So I would say, it doesn't tell us, but I would say most likely he's already done that. And who knows? Maybe some leper was healed, and he goes and tells his buddy that they were hanging out outside town where they had to go. He's like, you got to go see Jesus.
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm getting at, is somehow he had to figure it out. And if you're a Christian here tonight, Jesus Christ has cleansed you from something much worse than leprosy. You've been cleansed of sin and saved from death. Not physical, like the leprosy was taking this man, but spiritual death, eternal separation from God. And you and I need to understand that God is banking on the fact that we're going to tell people about it.
Right.
Just like we think that maybe, and I'm just speculating because we don't know, but that's how it works. That's why I'm speculating it this way. If he didn't see it for himself, somebody had to tell him that Jesus could do this.
Mhm.
How do you know that? That nobody could ever do this. I saw him with my very own eyes. Or, look at me.
Yeah.
We both had leprosy outside the camp. But Jesus healed me. Jesus is banking, God is banking on you and I telling people what he has done in cleansing us from our sins and saving us from death. That's how God works.
We got to spread the word.
We've got to spread the good news.
Good news.
It's likely that if this man was not there to see Jesus heal some of those people, those many people that he healed from the mountaintop revival, it's highly likely that somebody must have told him about Jesus and what they had seen him do, or maybe they had encouraged him to go find Jesus so that he could be healed. So, the question is, how many of you have told people about your conversion to Christ? And how many people have you encouraged to find Jesus for cleansing? It's something to think about. All throughout the Bible, God has used people to deliver his messages. He would